they have built relationships. They have found ways to live, and they've found another community that's going to enhance that darkness that you talk about, that you sit in, that challenged. I was scared. I could bring people in here and tell you they were feeling exactly what you felt at first.
Yeah.
But they realized that was keeping them stuck in a very hard place to live in if you're going to stay in that heavy darkness.
Yeah.
So it, just like I said, it's slowly turning on the dimmer light if you're willing to be open to see it.
Right. Welcome to Lived In by Zoe Therapy Services. I'm your host, Micah Faye, and I'm excited to share with you a community of experts who specialize in helping you feel fantastic. That's what Lived In aims to be, an online hub for DIY wellness, led by the experts and curated by folks who care. In this wellness series, I interview Richmond community leaders, vendors, and healers to empower you with a toolkit, one filled with healthy practices to make every day just a little bit better. So welcome to Lived In, your online comfy couch, surrounded by friends and supported by experts. Come on in. We're excited to have you. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Lived In. I'm your host, Micah Faye, and today we are here with Robin Yoder, and she is an oncology social worker.
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. So oncology, the study of cancer, yes?
Oncology is the study of cancer, but for the purposes of my work, oncology social worker I'm the one that helps somebody cope with living with cancer. Oncology is a very big medical word, a scary word for cancer. And cancer is scary, but as you hear me talk today, you might begin to realize it's scary, but with the whole world of people out here who can help you walk down that path.
Wow. Okay, so then can you tell me what your day looks like, or not? It's probably very different every day.
Let me just tell you a little bit about, who I am, where I work, what I do, and then, some of that other piece will unfold as we move along. I work at a big oncology center in Richmond, Virginia, called the Sarah Cannon Cancer Institute on the campus of Johnston Willis Hospital. Oh. And that's here in Richmond. I've been there 30 years as of this past December. And someone might go, oh my gosh, 30 years, that's a stale kind of a number. But my job has evolved, thankfully, over time. And 30 years ago, when I entered the world of oncology social work, there was not any oncology social workers really anywhere in the country. I'm in that early generation of the evolution of oncology social work profession. So I had a really nice springboard into creating my own job description. Yeah. So I spent a lot of my first years of oncology work just kind of watching and learning and understanding how this thing flows and where it is I can filter in some of my gifts and studies. And it really stemmed from, as a teenager, I was diagnosed with a rare cancer at the age of 17. And I was treated at a really big institution down in Gainesville, Florida. And I always said for myself and my family that if I survived that as a teenager, I would find some way to make life very different for someone in my future. Yeah. I didn't know what that really would look like, what that would really mean. And then 17, I didn't know that I would even live to be an adult. Well, I did live to be an adult, and now I'm in a situation that I can begin to assimilate some of the things that I held in my heart that I would like to do, and that would be to give people hope, to be an example to people that you can survive a cancer, to network people together to realize that cancer is a very scary word, but it's a lot less scary when you have hands to hold to walk down a dark path. And people like myself, people like the team I work with, we're all those figuratively and literally at times hand holders that help you not be so scared when we walk together down this path. I mean, you think about being a little kid and you walk through the house is dark and you're kind of scared walking up the steps to your bedroom, and then all of a sudden someone turns on the light and really the shadow on the wall that you were scared of was your teddy bear. Yeah. That's kind of how we are in oncology. We are kind of the light turn switchers, and we keep walking with you and turning on lights to help you see things in a very different context than how we're very influenced by media of, early days, the thought was anyone that gets cancer is going to die. That's not necessarily true. People do die from cancer, obviously, and sadly, but not everybody. Yeah. I didn't. And ultimately, whatever your faith is, that's ultimately who's, in my opinion only, who's in control of that. But let's help you figure out ways that you can be in control of the things you can control and help you find joy in the time in between.
Sure.
The time in between for some people is very short. For some people it's this, and for some people like me it's a long life. And so we need to keep you anchored. So I'm a part of a bigger team at the hospital. It's a unique system. It's a very specialized practice.
Yeah.
Cancer. I'm part of a multidisciplinary team, and with multiple meaning many, obviously, disciplines of lots of different people and different specialties. I sit on a committee that's called an Oncology team at the Sarah Cannon Cancer Institute. And that's about 15 different specialty disciplines that all come together to see to it that we look at you as a whole person and can provide all the types of services that we humanly can provide to help you go through your experience. And on that team, there's doctors. The specialties within a medical is the oncologists. They're the people that treat cancer. But even within that, there's other specialties. There's a surgical oncologist. That's the surgeon that does nothing but deal with oncology, cancer, tumors.
Right.
There's a medical oncologist that uses chemicals to help treat you all through your body to kill off any cancer cells that may be percolating and growing somewhere in your body through your bloodstream. Then there's radiation oncologists that use a very specialized treatment of radiation therapy and energy to target very specific locations on a person's body with radiation therapy. There's pathologists who read under the microscope. There's radiologists that read the reports and the scans, the MRIs, the mammograms, the PET scans, the CT scans, all of those types of things. Then there's nurses.
Right.
Lots of different types of specialty nurses. There's different social workers, case managers, dietitians, genetic counselors, just genetic specialists. So you can see all of a sudden when we're all in the room together, we can pretty much cover the full range of what your needs possibly could be.
Sure.
And the beauty of it is it's like a tapestry that kind of weaves together. And how I get referrals, I'm in an outpatient clinic. The beauty of where I am is I'm located inside the Sarah Cannon Center, centrally located on the first floor in a space of a foundation that I helped create. I'm a co-founder of something called the Hawthorne Cancer Resource Center. And that is a nonprofit organization that serves people in the Richmond community and surrounding areas that have been diagnosed with cancer and are being impacted by cancer. We help on a financial basis when someone's going through financial distress from a diagnosis of cancer. There's a lot of mounting bills that come up. Someone now is put into a dilemma. Do I pay for this medical treatment or do I buy food for my family?
Right.
Do I pay for my mortgage and risk, or do I pay for my medical treatment? Do I risk being evicted or do I pay for my medical treatment? That is just the unfortunate reality of where we are today with insurance. So, our foundation, one aspect of the bigger foundation is that there's a financial grant that people can apply to. If you live in the Richmond metropolitan surrounding areas, the Tri-Cities areas, Richmond, Henrico, Hanover, Mechanicsville, Chesterfield, and you're being treated at any one of our hospitals, you can apply for our financial grant to help you through that crunch. But
that's great.
That's the bigger foundation, is the financial. But the part that I founded is the actual physical structure of the resource center. It's kind of like Zoe Therapies. And by the way, I want to just thank Zoe Therapies for this invitation to be a part of this and to be able to share the kind of services that we provide. And also want to thank the executive director here, Yvonne Campbell, for creating such a cool space that really helps people of all walks and all challenges in life. And I also want to just say I'm just really proud of her. She and I were roommates in grad school and went to grad school together. So, to watch our careers kind of go parallel.
Yeah.
She's got a big comprehensive center that she's built here, based kind of on the same premise at our cancer center that the Hawthorne Cancer Resource Center is based off of, and that is having a singular place that people can come to in a non-threatening environment that's warm and welcoming, inviting, non-medical looking, that people can come and gain social and emotional support, educational resources, The counseling is there. All the support groups that I run are there. But they can also get a tangible resource, something that I can put in your hands and take out. For some people, it's a wig. For some people, it's a hat or a scarf. For some people, it might be a prayer shawl blanket that we've got a lovely knitting ministry that gives to us in our center to help those individuals. For some, it may be that you need a brochure that's giving you a really specific piece of education and information about your specific type of cancer. For some, it may be that you just need to come in and see that there's a human connection that you can come into, and we're not wearing white lab coats. You're not going to be intimidated by any of us. You're going to be greeted by, most likely, depending on the day you're there, a beautiful, sloppy, wagging-tailed therapy dog. It's really a center that's made with you in mind, and to give you a little bit of a respite through your treatment. There's a lot of times that you can have lots of different appointments, but gaps of time between, and where do you go to wait? It's too much, not enough time to go back home. You don't really want to go sit at a mall. Yep. You don't want to go sit out in the lobby, but you can come hang out with us. The center is staffed daily by volunteers.
Wow.
But honestly, right now, through COVID, we've had to make very serious, severe adjustments just like everywhere, and that doesn't quite happen the same way now. You can come in, but we can't have gatherings. We're not having our in-person support groups, but all of my support groups are done virtually. We adjusted very quickly, and I run 2 weekly support groups that I started 30 years ago in my early career, and they have run consistently every single week, every Monday and every Wednesday for my entire career, with the exception of a maternity leave and a medical leave that I had in recent years. So what might a day look like if you were to be diagnosed with cancer and you meet me?
Yeah.
It may mean that someone on the medical team, typically it's been the surgeon, because they're the very first point of entry into our world of cancer is a surgical consult. The surgeon recognizes that, this person could really use a little bit more support or just the information of what is out there as they embark on this new journey that they're on. And they make the referral to me, and they encourage the patient to come over to the center called the Hawthorne and meet me. So that meeting might look like just simply this. I might tell you a little bit about who I am, that I'm here for you, and that all of our services are free. We do not bill you. Wow. That's another carrot that we're paid for by the hospital to provide this outreach community service to our patients. And regardless of your hospital affiliation, you can come in and meet me. Wow. You can come in and meet my counterpart. So that's a beautiful thing. We're not going to add one more stress of a bill to you. So meeting me, I might just tell you, this is what I do. This is our center. Take a look around. See if there's anything that looks of interest to you, education-wise. Tell me a little bit about, where you are in your journey, what your diagnosis is, and I can help direct you to the resource that you need. Yeah. Or we can just sit down and, you can know me a little bit, know kind of how I practice, how I work. Me get to know you, hear a little bit about what your goals might be. Let me hear a little bit about how you've previously coped. And I'm going to anchor on to that, and we're going to build a foundation that's going to be a little more solid, because some of the ways that you may have previously coped may not always help you in this new world of cancer. Yeah. So we're going to add to that. So we're going to find new ways. So for me, I'm a little bit non-traditional, and my support groups are active and they're full. I may have, when we meet in person, any given Monday, you may see 15 people in our meeting room every single week. Any given Wednesday night, you could have anywhere from 15 to 25 people any given Wednesday night. Now that we run virtually, they run more like 10 would be large for our Monday group, and 15 would be about average for our Wednesday night group. We've lost very little, and we've had a lot of people just in this last year join on board, because this is the best we can offer. And it's not ideal, but it's still a way to keep people connected. And that's really the beauty of the Hawthorne being perched right inside the Oncology Center at Sarah Cannon is I've worked really hard and helped establish a culture there of a lot of hope. And never had it come so true to me the second go round. When it was 10 years ago, I was re-diagnosed with a second cancer. And it resulted in the amputation of my right leg all the way up. At this point in my life, I have a career, I have a husband, I have a 14-year-old son.
Wow.
Who both knew the history of my early cancer as a teenager, but they only knew it as a story. Now it's real. They also know what I do for a career, things I do in the community. My son has grown up around on cancer fundraisers, cancer activities. He's not afraid of the word because he knows this is what I do for a career. I've made my living. How enriched my life has been by the people that he has met, the patients that, have held him when he was an infant baby at a support group and passed him around, and they've watched this young kid grow up. And so all of a sudden it's a whole different world when it's his mom. So I'm having to kind of now practice what I preach and really walk my talk. And I chose to just put my story out there and, allow my son to understand as a parent. And to me, it was still, for me personally, these are personal decisions, but this is kind of how I practice. I kind of, I don't think it's such a thing that, and this is how I talk to people too. I said, it's not something that you have to tell everybody everything.
Yeah.
But we do need to tell some people some things. And that's a really hard thing for some people to grasp. But cancer is just too big to do alone, even though we think. And there's not a sign of weakness for asking for help. So we really preach that, we're here to help. There's no script to tell people how to do it.
Yeah.
And I doubt that you've done it before. So now that you're thrown into a situation that you didn't choose, let us help you. So just start by letting me help you and realizing that there may be some hidden gifts along the way. So back to my story, I had to just look at my son and just say, his name is Isaac.
Wow.
And just say, this is what has happened to me. And I'm being faced with some really big decisions. And the big decisions are to live out my life, and I will probably not survive it if I do nothing, but I've been given a choice that is going to require a lot of understanding and patience on everyone's part, and that is to amputate my right leg above where the tumor is. And from that day that I had to tell him, it was a 3-week turnaround by the time that surgery had to happen. And also I had to feel like I've got to be responsible to hundreds and hundreds of patients that I have interfaced with over my career who now, I had a choice. Can't hide a leg, okay? You might can hide a breast, can't hide a whole leg. So I've got to now tell, I don't have to tell, but I'm going to choose to tell because I've worked my whole career helping people learn how to talk about cancer. So if I don't choose to talk about cancer, what kind of message is that giving the people that I care so much about? Yeah. So I rounded them all up, and we had this town hall kind of meeting, and so that I could tell everybody myself, out of my voice, my heart, my words, and it not come from somebody else, but to hear it. So I swear there were probably, the hospital allowed me to have this town hall meeting, and I swear there was probably about 200 people of patients and my coworkers and people that I've interfaced with in the community over my career showed up to kind of hear where I was and, in my own little vulnerable self to tell everybody this is what I've been faced, this is what I'm facing, and this is what I'm going to need from you all. I need you all to continue to carry on. I'm going to have my coworkers, we're going to fill in on these groups. And I was going to count on them carrying on. That's what we have to do here. But I'm also, going to be very open, and I kept a very open blog so that people could log in and learn where I was in my journey and learn. To me, it was still a parental thing because it was giving my son some teaching of how we're going to go through this. We're going to allow a community to help us. And even if the help is just nothing more than prayer. And that's a hard thing for my patients to always grasp. How do I let people help me? I said, well, one, they're going to want to pray. So that doesn't require you to do anything. If they want to say, I'm going to pray for you, let them pray, however way that looks for you and feels for you. If they want to feed you, let them do that. That's a way people can help. Yeah. They can't, nobody could switch bodies with me and go down this path with me. Right. But I could allow people into my world. And, so back to the blog, here's my son. He's 14 years old. That's a scary thing to know that, this is a big chance my mom is having to take to get a chance. So to me, in order to have a chance in life, you have to take chances to get a chance. So I rolled the dice and gambled and allowed them to amputate my leg. He was not mature enough at 14 to really have all the verbal words to express what he might be feeling, but he had visual senses, he had feelings, and he was going to watch a lot of things that people outside of our little household were not going to always experience. So I gave him a camera, and I told him, I said, Isaac, the day of my surgery, you're in charge. You are the photographer. With one exception, I'm going to get to take the very first picture. And I said, and I'm going to write the corresponding blog to anything that you're taking pictures of, so that we can coordinate where our hearts are and people can appreciate and watch this journey, because it's going to help other people get permission to go through their journey however way it is for them. And that's really what we did. So the first picture that was taken was the minute I woke up from surgery. I just took the first picture in my bed looking down at this empty space. And then I handed the camera to him and let him go to town. So that whole first year, he was constantly taking pictures of my every first thing. The first time I stood up, the first time I looked at it, first time the stitches came out, the staples came out, the first time in the prosthetic clinic. And every first thing that I did, I was writing the corresponding blog and the emotions that were attached to it, because I knew that's how people were going to see me in the community in real life, in real time. And I teach that a lot in my support groups, because these are the ways that empower you as a person and as a patient going through this. Is you have power in your voice, and there's power in telling a story. So let me set my own example for my young son, but also to the patients that are reading my blog. It's a lot less scary to read it from my vantage point than hearing from someone that thinks they know what's happening to me, and they don't know all the facts. So they finish the sentence and they tell another patient, and they tell another patient, and then the story changes. That gossip kind of game. It's not gossip, but if you don't know the true facts of what's happening, we all as human beings want to finish the story. Right. So I needed to be that part for my patients, but also have some kind of documented account for my young son. Should I not survive this, he would have understood the role he played in it, and everything that I was doing, that he needed to see that his mom did everything possible to live on this earth, and if it wasn't meant to be. And at the end of the day, and here I sit today, 10 years later, it obviously it worked out for me. We just have a really nice documented story that hopefully might become a book someday. I don't know. But the point is, I was trying to teach all along the way for our patients, giving them permission in a very scary world of, you still can get through the scary parts. And let me tell you, there were very scary parts for me. There's very scary parts for our patients. But I also learned it's scarier when you're trying to be inside your head and not let people in. And this is kind of the culture in the community that I've helped establish over at our center, is that we're going to see you that way as a whole person. I'm going to get you out, and our support groups are not, it is what they are. They are truly support groups. They're not psychotherapy groups. Yeah. But they're therapeutic in their nature. Yeah. If you've been a part of my support group over time, you have gone to the beach for a weekend. You've gone rock climbing. You have gone camping. You have gone horseback riding. You have gone, let's see, where have we all been? We have gone out for adult beverages on a weeknight. We have had pizza parties. We have had baby showers. We have had the privilege of people getting married through the journey of their cancer. Sadly, we've also had to attend funerals, but we have been bowling. We just do things that normal adults do and put it in its place. I mean, there's a place to talk about cancer, but there's also a place to live. And you're going to find that through our programs, I hope, and even through just my leadership, because when I went through my cancer, I was out of work for 6 months, learning how to walk, learning to recover my life. But when I stepped back into my work environment, I was still learning how to walk. So I'm now in a fishbowl. You know, my friends and coworkers saw me at one point from a very established athlete to now someone that is a 5'8", 145-pound giant toddler walking around our center, falling down, learning how to walk in front of people. Right. That was a really vulnerable place to be in, as someone that's the helper is now falling. and stumbling. And there were people that knew my story of patients. Then there were new patients that knew nothing about me, that were not sure what was happening to me. And it created its own sense of stress, but it was also a choice I was making to continue to live my life in spite of it. It doesn't make me any expert in cancer. It doesn't make me any expert in knowing what your cancer is like. It does make me very relatable. It does make me really understand what it's like to have your life turned inside out at a time when you didn't expect it. So that's kind of where my credibility, I think, has come in and allowed people to kind of go, if she's doing that, then I can do that too. Yeah. I kind of summons my breast cancer support group a few years to join in with me to run a triathlon, a local small entry-level triathlon here in Richmond, and 12 of them jumped in and we all completed it together. We trained together, worked together, and these were things that they had never done in their life. And it was part of my own, I tell them, I'm still relearning my old life. Who wants to come along and join me? And then when they see the things that I'm trying to manage, they're like, it's not so bad for me. I can do this. It's all up in your head, a lot of the barriers that we have to cross. And that's just not cancer, just life in general. We get in our own way sometimes, people. So, when you come and be a part of our groups, you're being embraced by a group of people that have come together on, let's say, for example, on my Wednesday night support group. If you were to walk by our meeting space, you would maybe think, what the heck kind of group is that? You'll hear laughter, hilarious laughter. You might think, that is not in any way a cancer support group. Well, it is if that's the way you want to think cancer is heavy, and it is heavy. But on a Wednesday night, it's a night that people can just put cancer aside sometimes and just be together without the stress of always trying to explain yourself. Yeah. They can talk amongst each other, share their stories, and hear it heard for the value of what it's heard and how it's spoken, and not trying to convince your mother or your sister that you're better and stronger than you think you are, or them not wanting to hear the real hard parts, because families have a hard time for the right reasons out of deep love and care for you, but they feel helpless. So they don't always want to hear what you have to say, because for one thing, the reality can be scary. There is a reality. You can get cancer. One or two things are going to happen. You're going to live or you're going to die. Nobody knows which one that is. So I try to tell people, we can't focus on what we can't control. So why not gravitate towards the living, and what might that look like? So I tell people, I just had this conversation yesterday with a woman who was struggling, and she was in my office, and we were talking, and her husband was like, you just telling her that she just needs to get beyond her anger, because her anger was really tripping her up. And I don't know her anger. I know what she told me her anger was, but I don't know her anger. But I was listening to her anger, and I appreciated her anger, but I also did say the anger is keeping you stuck straddling the line. And she looked at me. I said, you can be angry, but I need you to be angry being all in. Yeah. Your anger is holding you back, and you've developed for yourself a defense that's not helping you right now. You've got to be 100% bought in. You can't straddle the line. You can't teeter-totter of not wanting to do this, but having to do this. You got to just be all in and accept there's going to be some things along the way that you're going to be asked. That we're going to ask of you, not just me, but the medical team is going to ask a lot of you to go through these treatments and endure a lot. But you have to go in and be all in to realize I have to be invested that this can help me. You can look at it as the glass is half empty, the glass is half full, and you don't know. And I'm going to hear from you what that is for you, and we got to help you understand that being all in means I'm going to be 100% invested, that these treatments are going to give me a benefit. Because being on the other side of the line, that is a dread going through it. And you're not going to be able to be privileged to some of the hidden, beautiful gifts that are going to come along the way. And when I say that to a new patient, they're like, you are kidding me. There's no hidden gifts in any of this. Well, I can guarantee you if I lined up 50 of the patients that have been through our programs and the support groups, they're going to tell you the gifts are the human connection. The relationships that they have built with each other, meeting other patients. Some of the things that they've challenged themselves that they never in their life would have ever thought of challenging themselves to do. One of our groups has written 3 volumes of a book of just shared collective stories. And talk about being vulnerable in those moments is they were all excited to do it. And then when I signed the exercise was like as loose as your agenda was share your story. Give me a snapshot of something that you would like to share and write it from the perspective that a new patient is going to pick this book up and read it. What would you want them to know about wherever you are in your journey? Sounds pretty easy until the rule is once you write it, you have to come to the group and read your story aloud to the group and have it validated. Well, there's a very different shift of writing something, coming to a group and hearing your voice, read your words of a real story that you are currently living around a table of other people that are in a very similar story that can really hear it and not be reactive to it and not judge it, but just completely 100% validate it. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful hidden gift. And watch my vantage point in my work. I'm in a really privileged position to really watch people find deeper strengths within themselves, move through something that they never thought they could possibly do, and share at such a deep spiritual level and live and find joy. Because I always coin this phrase for me, but it's so true for everybody, that grief and joy can coexist together. You know, for me personally, I was going through so much loss. I lost a leg. I lost a lot through that. But as each little obstacle that I overcame, I was greeted with a joyful moment of learning something new about myself, of things that I was capable of doing, things that were possible for me, and things that I could still do, the things I used to do. I'm just having to learn them differently. And it's the same with people. They're learning that they can do this, and that they're gravitating and anchoring themselves to positive, hopeful things that are going to help them get through each moment. And for them, it's coming together on a Wednesday night and just sharing and being a part of something special and bigger than themselves. For my other crowd, it's coming together on a Monday afternoon and sharing and being the same kind of support for one another and sharing a lot of laughter. The second meeting of each month is a potluck. Everyone comes bearing food, comfort food. There's nothing healthy. You know, the dietitians would never poo-poo it because it's a beautiful comfort food. Potluck feels like you're going to church. Casseroles, Mondays and Wednesdays, of people coming and sharing. So there's a lot of fellowship involved in that, because that's important too. So we really just kind of see you as a whole person and try to help you that way. If you're an individual that has got prior issues from your past that may kind of try to sabotage or wash over you trying to go through cancer, I personally don't attend to that. I tend to it, but I tend to it in a way that I'm going to redirect you back to a person that helped you with that issue prior, because I'm really going to try to stay focused on how it is that cancer is impacting your daily life. And I'm going to really encourage you to bring that other individual in and continue to build that foundation so that you have all the tools and the support you need as you go through this. Yeah. So that's just kind of how I operate.
Do you ever feel like you talk about cancer too much? I wonder, does it ever burden you? Because you've lived it. So like living every day in it with other people. Do you ever go home and you're like, tonight we're not saying the C word. We're not doing it.
Well, I don't really, I can't not live it, because every day I have to get up and put a leg on.
Right.
That's a everyday constant reminder. But the everyday beauty is I live to put a leg on to get up and live.
Right.
I live to put a leg on to go walk in my center and meet some of the most phenomenal, strong, inspiring people that I would have not met otherwise.
Right.
I get to connect at such a different level. I'll tell my story. It's not by any means the focus of all my conversations, but right. I can guarantee you the second I sit down, someone sees my leg, you're going to notice that. You can see the camera. I'm not shy about it, but
it has your name on it.
It has my name on it.
Or he or she, I don't know. Is it gendered?
Well,
does it have a name?
What it has on here is something kind of cool. So live above the expectations.
Yeah.
And I try to live that way. And, that's why I try to ask people, what are your goals here? What are your expectations about this? I don't mean about the success or failure of your treatment. I'm talking about you personally. Do you need to have a deeper spiritual experience? Do you need to connect differently with your pastor, your church? Are there things that you would like to tie up some past failed relationships or communication with somebody that meant something to you in your past? What are your opportunities? Do you want to participate in the Monument 10K? Do you want to learn to play a piano? Do you want to, whatever it is you want to learn, you can.
Right.
And this can some way be a segue to opening a doorway to people to understand I don't have to be locked into the way I've always done things. I have a chance now to recreate myself with the foundation that I have below me, or discard some of the foundation that wasn't helpful to me in the past and create new foundations.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, that to me, that we're not going to limit you. And I think that also was never more clear to me than when I was going through my own recovery, when nobody on my prosthetic or rehabilitative team put a limit on me. Right. I mean, the day one out of surgery, I called them up and said, I've had my surgery now, and I want you all are going to help me learn to run again. In that moment, was that a realistic expectation? No, but it was a realistic expectation at some point, and they had to help reel me in the early phases to say exactly what I'm saying to you now, but in a physical way. I had to have a foundation reestablished in order to get to that point.
Right.
And it was going to require a lot of me, of patience, and falling down and getting back up, and falling down and getting back up, but having a will and a determination with people around me that knew what the heck they were doing when I didn't know anything about prosthetics and learning to walk. I had to learn a new vocabulary. I know the cancer vocabulary, but now I'm thrown into another vocabulary that I didn't know anything about. And that's the way the cancer patients are. So what I have to help them learn, to surrender a little bit of that and let us teach you.
Yeah.
I try to tell people that that internet is such a beautiful thing, but it can be a very scary place too. And I try hard to keep people off the internet unless you go to a site that you ask your physician to guide you to, because you may read something that's all about you, and then there's one sentence in there that has nothing to do with you, but you read that and it sends your anxiety so off the scale.
Yeah.
And you have created an anxiety unnecessary. There's enough to be anxious about without bringing things in that aren't related to you. So that's how I have to help them too. We're building your new foundation, and you're needing to listen to us and let us help you while you're a partner with us. You're the driver of this, but let us help you, teach you what we do know, and then watch them take it off and run. That's the beautiful part, when you really watch somebody just blossom right in front of you and discover things of themselves and challenge themselves in new ways, or find a new way to communicate to their spouse or their children. Yeah. So that was the same kind of foundation I had to do, but I had to do this in a fishbowl, watching people watch me, which had its own stress. But I wasn't damaged by it. If anything, it kind of it encouraged me to continue to get up and keep doing what I'm doing, and in a place that I so much love.
Right.
So.
I'm curious about your identity as an athlete, because one of the first things you said when you walked in, you talked about your experience as an athlete. So I think that's central to your identity. You described yourself as a 5'8" toddler at one point. I'm curious how your identity as an athlete affected the way that you approached cancer the first and second time, but also how your identity as an athlete sort of has changed and grown over the years, right?
Right. Well, when I first got diagnosed with cancer at 17, I was on track to be a Division I basketball player. I had received offers for scholarship.
Right.
And I got diagnosed the very second week after we had a discussion and a meeting with the coach. And as soon as I got the scholarship, it was taken away because it was too much of a gamble. Yeah. Because there wasn't even a guarantee at 17 I was going to live. So that was a really hard, difficult time for me, because I was an athlete, period. Hands down, anyone that knows me from my past, that is how I was identified, as a very nice person, but a very gifted athlete that was getting royally rewarded at that phase in my young life, just to have it crash down in front of me. But it also gave me a mentality to understand what it's like to work hard. I had worked really hard for that. So I had to I had to force myself to shift the thinking and really apply some of those same principles of really being disciplined and working hard and finding the right team of people, coaches, whatever you want to call it, therapists, counselors that could help me in a situation that I was incapable of managing by myself at a young age. I did go off to college and finished on time. I have an undergraduate degree in education. It was a hard shift because the first whole year of my college, I was on crutches recovering because it was a cancer in my leg, and they were trying very hard back then to save my leg, which they did. But it required me to have a shift in how my day-to-day activities went. Yeah. I'm now classified handicapped and moved into a handicapped dorm, not in the athletic dorm. So I was in a tough time in your young life anyway in that kind of transition. Yeah. But now all of a sudden I don't have anything to fall back on, and I'm out of the state. I'm in at a college where nobody knows one single thing about my past, had no understanding that 5 weeks prior to my going to my first year of college, I was in a hospital in Florida fighting for my life. So I'm bringing all this to this whole college experience. Yeah. And I just had to, I don't know. I don't know if it's just my quiet strength or whatever you want to call it back then. I just got through it. Yeah. But it also, as I got a little older and more mature through those 4 years, it also began to recognize for me, I'm being exposed now to a whole other world that had I just been the athlete, I would have had a wonderful college experience as an athlete because that's who I was and I loved that. But all of a sudden I'm being exposed to another part of the world and lots of different choices and things that I can do now that I wouldn't have probably entertained. Mm-hmm. So I was entertaining the Peace Corps. And I applied right out of college, and I got accepted. And right out of college, I went to Jamaica for 2 years in the Peace Corps and volunteered my time on a literacy project, teaching children language arts in a primary school in Jamaica for 2 years. That was an invaluable experience. For one thing, it allowed me to just be away from all of this and separate from all of this and continue to develop and grow and mature as a young adult, but also understand that there's a bigger life out there than just me. And as a person in a country, in a third world country, we're all depending on each other to help one another. In the community that I lived in, I was like a commodity, a young American, and I'll say it, a white female in Jamaica. They were curious. The children were curious about the hair on my arms, and the hair on my head felt different than theirs, and my skin looked different. I was in a very rural part of Jamaica that they didn't see many tourists, so I was well taken care of. And it took a while for them to just kind of see how I worked and why I was there. I was not there to flaunt anything, money, any privilege that I had. I was there to help. And then when they started to realize that, they really took care of me and taught me how to survive there. The ladies in the market there kind of took me under their wings and taught me how to haggle and taught me how to survive in a kind of an aggressive culture. And I got a bigger sense of community. And that's when things started shifting for me, is what did I want to do with my career? As my 2 years in Jamaica was winding down as a teacher. And social work just kind of fit where I was heading. And I was doing social work, teaching, but I was doing social work in my little community after school. There were children in my little village area that couldn't afford to go to school. So I taught them when I got home from school on my back steps and taught them how to read and just gave these children a sense of belonging. But they also gave me so much more at that point. So after that experience, I had applied to graduate school at VCU from Jamaica and was accepted, so I had a plan. Right. So here I am again, 6 weeks after I finished 2 full years in a foreign country. I'm plopped in VCU, trying to start graduate school. So, and I knew I had a bigger gift than just formalized teaching in a classroom, that I had a gift in the way my life was being lived. And I started to kind of reconnect back to my roots and run local races and got involved in a triathlon community and bicycled a lot. And that's where I met my husband on a bicycle. And we were on a 3-day bicycle trip in the mountains on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So my athletics were sort of weaving my way. I spent the first year of my college years on crutches recovering from that surgery. But after that, I just hit the ground running and never looked back. And just because athletics were important to me for many multitude of reasons. That was my identity, but it keeps you healthy and it gets you involved in a community of like-minded thinking people. So, I always get asked, you've been in oncology for 30 years, you've had cancer twice in your life. Did you choose oncology? No, I didn't. I would have never, I wouldn't have bet a penny. I wouldn't have literally bet a penny that I would have ever ended up in oncology. I ended up in oncology because that was the only job that was offered to me out of grad school when I was poor. I didn't have an income. I'd been in undergraduate school, the Peace Corps for 2 years, and 2 years now of grad school. That's 8 years without an income. And I needed a job. So Johnson Willis offered me a job, and it happened to be in oncology.
Right.
And I had no hospital experience other than I had been a patient, but I had a vision. And that's really kind of how I got springboarded. And as I kind of got a little bit older and became middle-aged, I started getting back again, invested back into athletics, because you were asking me about athletics. But it always fed a need in me that I think that if I really were to be honest, the saddest part for me is I was a good athlete as a young person, and that was stopped by no choice of my own. And I never really got to really realize my full potential, what that could have been for me. Because it was a leg, and because it was such an assault on my leg at that time, there was just no way possible that I could have ever recovered it to the strength of what I was previously to catch myself up. It just wasn't going to be possible. So I had to settle with satisfying myself and setting my own personal small goals in the local races and the local clubs that I was a part of. So when I got the second cancer, I really had to rely heavily on just that kind of a discipline and knowledge of what is it going to take for me to endure what I have to endure. And I kind of allowed the fear of dying to just fall away because I wasn't going to be in control of that. Yeah. Even giving up my leg wasn't going to guarantee me life. It was going to guarantee me a chance. So I had to accept that fact. So what is it that I could do on a day-to-day basis is control what I could control. I had to learn how to walk. I had to discipline myself to get up and try to control my diet, because now I go from being really active to not active at all and gaining weight. That's an amputee's worst nightmare, is weight. That is the biggest barrier to successful walking, is weight. And I'd never had a weight issue, and I still don't. I still have a few pounds I don't want on me, but thanks to the pandemic and lack of activity that way. But I found a way, and my rehab team helped me stay focused on our goals and have taught me well. And I've recovered. I've recovered every skill I ever did. I have done 3 or 4 triathlons since I've lost my leg. I can ride a bike. I can swim. I competitively row. I can run. I can do every single thing that I did before. I just have had to learn to do it differently. And that has springboarded me into a whole nother group of community here in Richmond that works with adaptive athletes. One of those organizations is called Sportable, and the other is called Mission Gate, that I'm intimately involved with. And that's just because of my disability or ability. I don't know. I mean, by legal definitions, I am disabled, but I'm not disabled. I can do more than most people my own age. I just have to have the equipment to help me do it differently. Yeah. So that's kind of the mentality that I kind of work with my patients from. That might not work with everybody. My style is just how you're hearing me talk, is how I talk to my patients. But after you kind of get to know me, you realize where it's coming from, a real soulful, deepful, passionate heart, that I kind of know what I'm talking about, and you got to just process it through and figure out what is it that I'm saying that's going to help you do the same thing for yourself, however way that looks for you. And I'm going to be right there to cheer you on and support you and hold your hand, and then let your hand go when you're ready to take off on your own, and cheer you all along the way. That is kind of how I am as a practitioner and as an individual. And sometimes I don't know where the lines are separate because they're very blurred. This is just who I am, and I care very deeply about what I do and believe deeply in what I do.
Well, that's very clear.
Very clear. It's very clear.
Yes, very clear. I am not like you. I want to start there. I'm a teacher, so we received similar education. I'm a horseback rider, but I was always a theater person. I went to school for theater. I went to VCU for theater.
Mm-hmm.
I do not have an athlete's mindset, which is not to say I am not dedicated and dogged and strong. I'm all of those things. But I like the darkness. I like not being hopeful. I like when things are hard. I think that's that's why I love really emotional plays. Like
It's
I
an
want
opportunity
those
for
places.
change. That's whatever that darkness is. It's an opportunity for change.
But see, I don't see it. That's why I'm curious, because I don't see it that way. Like I think your hope is incredible, but I think if I were a cancer patient, I don't think I could get there. Honestly, I don't.
Well, that's where we would start. We would just start there, and what I do, I would challenge you to just come be curious. I would challenge you, depending on what cancer you have, what group I would say, I would challenge you just to come and be curious, because you have no script.
Yeah.
There's no script. I can't hand you this paper and say, Micah, this is how you do it.
That's how you do cancer.
That's how you do it. I mean, I wish it were that easy, but I can give you a script of how it might look, but I don't know anything about what you just told me. I don't know anything about all that's got you to where you are today.
Right.
I don't know anything about your social influences, the things that you might have experienced in your past that are formulating how you might now see your cancer as a very difficult mountain to get over. So I'm going to be curious a little bit about that and go, okay, I respect that, but there might be another way to look at it.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with just shifting your view to from here to here and opening those blinders just a little bit. Not a lot. That's overwhelming. That is not my place to try to overwhelm you. It's just subtle, slow, repeated exposures to something that may be a little different.
That's true.
It doesn't mean you have to do it, but it might spark your curiosity to go, maybe the way I've been thinking about it helped me to now, but maybe that's not going to help me exactly the way I need help this way, because we've never done this before. I've lived with maybe the tough upbringing or something that wasn't pleasant, or I experienced something hard as a child, or whatever it may be, that where I had a bad experience, but I lost someone I deeply loved from cancer.
Yeah.
So that's all going to influence right now where you sit with hearing this.
Yeah.
So let's just say I'm going to talk to you and hear what that's about, but just take my hand a little bit, and whether it's literally or figuratively, and just come along with me a little bit. Let me let you meet some people that felt the same way that you did.
It sounds like that's what the support groups might be.
That is totally what it's
good
about.
for.
To me, I see a support group as a dress rehearsal to living outside of the bounds of our doors, because you're going to get a chance to speak it, stumble over your words, cry if you need to, yell if you need to, bang on the table if you need to, laugh if you need to, without any judgment, and get a trial run of how to begin to say this to the person that you need to say it to most. And nobody here is going to judge you at all. So if you say it enough times in group, because I will say, when you come to a group, I don't force anybody to say or share anything that they're not comfortable sharing.
Right.
But I do ask you to at least tell us what you want us to call you, and share with us what you're comfortable. But it would be helpful to know where you are and what your diagnosis is, because I'll guarantee you there'll be somebody or bodies around the room that have a very similar story, and they will then be able to have a jump-in point to kind of help you understand what the next phase may look like for you. So all of a sudden, you're just turning on a little light, or you're taking the dimmer switch and just a little bit at a time, just turning up the light a little bit so you can just see through that darkness.
Yeah.
It may still look the same, I don't know, but let's just at least entice you enough to be curious, to look.
Right.
That's all.
That's very cool.
So that's how I would do it. Now, other people may see it differently, but I can't always tell if it's just because of the way I've had to simulate it for myself personally from going through cancer and having a true, really, everybody's life is disruptive, but you lose a quarter of your body, it's truly disruptive, but it made me really have to pause and think. So some of it comes through from things that I know that I taught myself. You know, I'm trained like everybody else in the academic world, but sometimes that book knowledge isn't always applicable. But it was my foundation to allow my individuality to come out to help you the best way that I can.
Yeah. Interesting. In all of our interviews, because we talk to wellness people, we address skeptics, because everyone is skeptical, especially in the Western world. When you present them with anything except for Western medicine, they're skeptical of its efficacy, right? And so I like that the way you deal with skeptics is to just put them in a room with people who used to be skeptics and say, talk amongst yourselves. That's amazing. That's really cool.
I mean, I literally have had people, out of complete respect, that said, we don't want to come in there. I said, well, then don't. Sit outside of the room and just listen. Just sit outside. I'll put a chair out here. Nobody in the room will even know you're sitting out here. The door will be open. I'm just going to let you kind of hear. They didn't sit in that chair for very long, because what happened was, by the structure, the pre-COVID, let me just say, a lot of this is talking pre-COVID. You walk into our center and there is a beautiful open area greeting social gathering room. And then if you go off to the right, there's a kitchen, full working kitchen.
Wow.
But then further back, there's a big conference room that holds comfortably 25, 30 people. If we sit around the perimeter, you can get 35 tight. And it's not unusual. We have had occasions that 30 or 30 people when we do special activities. But I've had people that when they walk in that door, there's a pre-meeting. It's not my set meeting. Meeting starts at 6:30, okay? 6 o'clock, people start showing up, and they're gathering together. So the new person is walking in the space, and they're hearing laughter. They're hearing people share stories of how the week has been. They're hearing about a summer vacation. They're hearing about their daughter's upcoming marriage or the grandchild's birth coming up. And all of a sudden you're like, what kind of room am I walking into? This is supposed to be a cancer support group. Well, it is, but we don't have to talk about it all the time. So all of a sudden they're greeted by real normal life conversations that have people that have learned how to put a balance in place here. You can't just be in the heaviness.
Yeah.
I mean, you might come to our meeting and go, and if there's nothing going on with anybody that night, cancer may never even be mentioned. And you might go, well, how was that helpful? Well, it's helpful because we're tending to you as a whole person. It is interesting to me and important to me to hear about your family vacation, that you planned something between your chemotherapy treatments.
Yeah.
And you did not let this stop you living.
Right.
And you plan things out, and you're still going to your son's baseball games, and your goal is to walk your daughter down the aisle for her wedding, and you've got something positive to anchor yourself to in the midst of this storm. That's what I'm talking about. When that grief and joy collide, this is what it looks like. It can coexist, but you have to choose to open yourself to that. And sometimes, that person that I was back referring to sat outside the room. And once the meeting shifted from the pre-meeting, I mean, that's just what I call it, to the formalized meeting, and she's sitting out in the chair, and all of a sudden inches her chair into the doorway. Literally, this is a literal, honest to goodness truth. And then all of a sudden gets up and sits around the table. You've done your job.
Yeah, for sure.
And then I have to shoo them out after the meeting because it's time to go home. It's 8:30. I got to drive 30 minutes home, and they're still there talking.
Right.
Or they follow, there's this post-meeting out in the parking lot. Yeah. So to me, that's a sign you've done your job.
Definitely.
And then you come in the next week and you heard that a couple of them gathered together and went out to dinner. I didn't join them, but when you hear that happening, you've done your job.
Yeah.
They have built relationships. They have found ways to live, and they've found another community that's going to enhance that darkness that you talk about, that you sit in, that challenged. I was scared. I could bring people in here and tell you they were feeling exactly what you felt at first.
Yeah.
But they realized that was keeping them stuck in a very hard place to live in if you're going to stay in that heavy darkness.
Yeah.
So it, just like I said, it's slowly turning on the dimmer light if you're willing to be open to see it.
Right. Very cool. Well, we are quickly running up on our hour. So how do prospective clients, I guess, how do they find you? Is there a website?
There's a website. There's a phone number. I'm going to leave all that material if you want to just post that after this. And that's, you can email me. You can call me.
Yeah.
I try to, the way you get into the groups right now, you do have to call me. It's not just open forum. I need to be the one to do the invite to you directly and have a brief conversation just to answer whatever questions you may have. But you may call me, you can email me,
Okay.
and I'll be happy to help you. And if it's not me, I don't have any big ego. If I can't help you, I'm very quick at getting you to perhaps people that can. So I'm just one person out here that does this one way. It just happens personally to work for me. And if you like this style, this is what you get.
Right.
There's no hidden agenda for me. We're going to talk honestly and candidly and joyfully.
And then I'm curious, I don't have very much experience with cancer. I think the closest I have is that 3 of my best friends are medical physicists, and so they work in the cancer world. That's, I think, my only connection to cancer. I'm curious how, because inevitably every human interacts with cancer and a loved one or in themselves, how should I ever be in that situation? What's the first thing I say? You know, my dad tells me he has stomach cancer. What's the first thing I say?
You give him a hug.
Okay.
And say, I don't want to act like I know what to say, Dad, but I'm going to be here for you. And that is my other thing, and I would say this if I have another couple seconds here.
Yeah, of course.
Is I hear a lot at times that people get very frustrated with family members and friends not saying the awkward things or not saying anything at all. And I will be the first to take defense of those individuals, because how can we expect them to know what to say when they're not living it?
Right.
So I try to help our patients get to a place where to see that in some ways we as patients have a sense of responsibility to help give some of those people some understanding,
some grace,
some understanding about what it is our dynamic is like, so that they then have a few tools to know how to help you. You know, they all mean well, and they all say, you know, I will still get it. Well, you look good. Well, I do.
Well,
what
duh,
do you?
yeah.
What does that even mean? What does that even mean? But I might look good on the outside, but you don't really know what I'm feeling on the inside. So let's not even give that. That's not even the right comment. I tell people, and I say this to my group, I don't always know what to say, but I'm going to sit here and listen. I'm going to sit here and listen and let you help me understand, so then I then can help you.
Yeah.
And together we'll work through this together and figure out what that script might look like, and give you some tools to help educate the people around you. So that's how I would say it. And you're going to learn together. And I always tell people, don't judge me over a one-time interaction. Let's see how this looks over a period of time.
Yeah.
Because I've got to learn.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to be critical of my family if they don't live in my body, unless I'm willing to help give them some understanding of what things I'm actually feeling, to know what it is they can say. Nothing is off limits, but nothing's really off limits, but we have to help give them, and not be so reactive and judge. They're helpless. They are in a very, caregivers, let me tell you, I can't say enough about what they go through. That is a very helpless place to be in. So, you know, I try to meet with them too, and there's certain nights of our support group meeting that we open it up to caregivers so they can sit and learn and listen from others. This is not a individual disease. It's you that has it, but it affects everybody that cares about you at some level.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I would say to you for your dad. You know, I don't know what I'm going to say,
Sorry
Dad, but
I didn't mean to give you hypothetical cancer,
no,
Dad.
no,
So
but I'm
sorry.
No, you didn't. I understand the question. I said, but you know, it's okay to say to your dad, if that's the scenario that we're talking about, that Dad, I don't know what to say, but I love you enough that I'm going to listen and let you help me. And together we're going to help each other.
Yeah. We don't really hug. Is it okay if I punch him? That's more us.
That's all right.
All right, got it. All
Well,
right, I'll smack him a little bit.
There you go. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. So here, I want to review. Your services are free.
Yep.
Which means that if I'm being treated in Hanover, Henrico, Chesterfield, Richmond,
Yep.
I can access you.
Yep.
Yes, okay.
And the support groups.
The name of your center is, one more time?
The Hawthorne Cancer Resource Center.
At the Sarah Cannon Institute.
Yep.
Yes, okay. In order to go to a support group, I need to talk to you first.
Yep.
Okay. But once I do, I can choose to be a part of that support group.
Correct.
Okay.
Once you do, you will get an invite from me by the email every single week. That doesn't commit you. That just gives you an invite. And you join in or not. I don't expect, it's not my expectation. My only job is to give you the invite.
Right. Right. All right, I think I got it.
Got it?
Thank you so much, Robin.
Sure.
This is an awesome talk.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.